Coming into the NFL in 2002, the Houston Texans are the youngest franchise in the league, but that hasn't stopped them from collecting superstar talent over the years. From J.J. Watt to Andre Johnson to Brian Cushing to Mario Williams to Arian Foster to DeAndre Hopkins to Jadeveon Clowney and of course Deshaun Watson. And they're about to lose three of the probably four best players in franchise history in a matter of a little over a year. It's crazy to think that Deshaun Watson, J.J. Watt, and DeAndre Hopkins were all teammates and were surrounded by competent guys. And the best they could show for it is the divisional round. Thanks to one man, an entire franchise that had so much potential a little over a year ago is now staring down the barrel of a rebuild. How the hell does that happen? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Shout out to Dom2K for this video format. He made a couple videos like this in the past, and this is where I'm getting the inspiration from. I've been watching his channel for over 4 years now, so shout out to him. Okay, so let's just get this out the way. Let's start from the beginning with J.J. Watt. Prior to J.J. arriving to the team in 2011, the Texans only recorded one winning season in their first 9 years of existence. As soon as Watt arrived, they made the playoffs for the first time with a 10-6 record and winning the division for the first time ever. And all of a sudden, the Texans were perennial playoff threats. JJ quickly became one of the most dominant defensive players in NFL history. Hell, all I need to say is that he won Defensive Player of the Year in his second season in the league, again in his fourth season in the league, and then in his fifth season in the league. And he became the first player in NFL history to record multiple 20-sack seasons. We get it, he was one of the more dominant players we've ever seen. However, that didn't lead to much success come playoff time. In both 2011 and 2012, they hosted and beat the Bengals at home in the wildcard round, but ultimately ended up losing on the road to the Ravens and Patriots respectively in the divisional round. So things were getting stagnant in Houston. The defense was absolutely elite, led by JJ, but the offense on the other hand were good, but not good enough. Arian Foster was in his prime at the time, doing big things before injuries ravaged his career. Matt Schaub was a slightly above average quarterback that you couldn't trust in big moments, and primary offensive weapons Andre Johnson and Owen Daniels were still very good, but they were slowly but surely creeping up the age ladder. This led to the Texans drafting college stud Deandre Hopkins in the first round of the 2013 NFL Draft, and just like that, they found their Andre Johnson successor and extra weapon. Now they had a young stud wide receiver, an experienced elite Pro Bowl wideout, an experienced elite Pro Bowl running back, and a quarterback coming off a Pro Bowl year, and not to mention an elite defense. They were going to have a big year and be contenders, right? Nope, 2-14 was what they did that season. Arian Foster was injured the entire year, Matt Schaub sucked the entire year, and the defense that was top 10 in 2012 had regressed to the 24th ranked defense. And this was the start of a culture shift within the organization as Gary Kubiak was shown the door in the middle of the season, so the savior of the franchise, Bill O'Brien, walks into town and everyone in Houston was so excited because he was a disciple directly from the Bill Belichick coaching tree. Schaub was traded in the offseason, Ryan Fitzpatrick was brought in, Jadeveon Clowney was drafted number 1 overall, and the Texans had a bounce-back year in 2014, going 9-7, but they missed out on the playoffs. On the bright side, J.J. Watt won Defensive Player of the Year for the second time. In 2015, Watt wins Defensive Player of the Year once again and quickly solidified himself as one of the more dominant players we've ever seen. Hopkins eclipsed the 100-catch mark for the first time in his career and went over 1,500 yards with Brian Hoyer, Ryan Mallett, and TJ Yates as his quarterbacks. However, all of that was for nothing because the Texans made the playoffs and got shut out by the Chiefs. Once again, the defense was top 10 and the offense still had a tendency to lag behind. It was just a matter of time before that defense gave out for having to carry the load. Before we continue, keep in mind that Hopkins' quarterbacks in his short career up to that point were Matt Schaub, Case Keenum, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ryan Mallett, Brian Hoyer, Brandon Weeden, and TJ Yates. That's 7 quarterbacks that had started at least a game in only 3-year span. So what did the Texans go out and do in 2016? They signed a guy to a 4-year, $72 million contract. This guy had only started 7 games in his career up to that point and looked average at best. Brock Osweiler was seen as the savior for the franchise as they obviously thought he was the guy. Well, he was the guy that threw 15 touchdowns and 16 interceptions. He was the guy that was benched in favor of Tom Savage. Tom freaking Savage. Nonetheless, the Texans again went 9-7 and again made the playoffs despite the fact that they were responsible for a bottom 5 offense in the league. Why? Because the defense was absolutely elite once again, ranking first in yards given up. The only reason they had even advanced in the playoffs was due to the fact that the Raiders were playing with their third string quarterback due to Derek Carr breaking his leg. That experiment failed, they lost in the divisional round, and then they traded Brock Osweiler along with a second round pick. Hey look, in 2017, the Texans actually did something correct when it came to the quarterback position, as Desean Watson was drafted 12th that year. During the time that the Texans finally figured out their quarterback situation, the defense that was holding the team down for so long had finally fallen apart. They had the worst defense in the league in 2017 when it came to points given up, and then to make matters worse, Deshaun Watson ends up tearing his ACL. Watt only played in 5 games that year as he was also dealing with injury, so I don't really blame the Texans for their 4-12 record in 2017. In 2018, however, the Texans bounced back in a huge way by making the playoffs. But as fast as the Texans bounced back, they were bounced out of the playoffs. And it was more of the same in 2019. A very good regular season, but the great play didn't translate much to the playoffs. Actually, scratch that. It did translate to the playoffs for about a game and a half. They came back from a 16-0 deficit against the Bills behind the heroics of Watson, and that led to the matchup that we all remember. The Texans blew a 24-0 lead to the Kansas City Chiefs. Not by the end of the game, but by the end of the second quarter. Maybe I should just be praising Kansas City and what they did, but I can't let Bill O'Brien off the hook for that collapse, as he had some egregious calls, including not going forward on 4th and 1 from the Kansas City 11-yard line when they were already up 3 scores, and then actually going forward on 4th down and 5 from their own 30-yard line when they shouldn't, and that swung all the momentum Kansas City's way. The way in which they lost that game had to have been so demoralizing for the Texans to the point of no return. The Texans organization felt it was time to blow it up, and Bill O'Brien, who was now the general manager by the way, decided it was a genius idea to trade Deandre Hopkins in March of 2020. And of course, it wasn't for any justifiable reason. Was D-Hop ever a problem in the locker room? Not that we know of. Did D-Hop disrespect Bill O'Brien in some way, shape, or form? Not that we know of, although I wouldn't blame him if he did. Details surfaced that Bill O'Brien compared Deandre Hopkins to Aaron Hernandez in a one-on-one meeting that went south very quickly. According to D-Hop, he was told, "The last time I had to have a meeting like this was with Aaron Hernandez." Excuse me, what? How could you say that, especially to your star player that has done nothing detrimental to the team? O'Brien thought Hop had too much influence over the team, and he didn't like the fact that D-Hop had his baby mamas around the team as much as he did. So all that in his eyes was enough to trade his star player, his 4-time Pro Bowler, a top wide receiver in the NFL. And not only did he trade him, but he traded him for a washed up David Johnson. And he also traded him for a 2nd and a 4th round pick. Are you kidding me? He failed to gain a 1st round pick out of DeAndre Hopkins. Not only was DeAndre Hopkins worth a 1st rounder, but he was worth multiple 1st rounders. But instead, he got traded for a bag of chips. But hold up, let's backtrack a little bit. First and foremost, how the hell does Bill O'Brien earn the right to become only one of 2 general managers / head coaches in the league at the time? What the hell did he do to deserve that? And to make matters worse, Deshaun Watson, who is very close to Hopkins due to their Clemson ties, found out about the trade through social media like everybody else did. To keep the stretch of bad trades going, the Texans don't even have their 1st round pick this year after going 4-12. Their top 5 pick is in the hands of the Miami Dolphins, who went 10-6. How does this happen? Because Bill O'Brien thought it was a great idea to trade not 1, not 2, but 3 picks for Laramie Tunsil and Kenny Stills, and 2 of those picks were 1st rounders. Yes, the Texans needed linemen to protect Watson, and Tunsil's a very good player, but was he worth 2 1st rounders? I don't think so. O'Brien traded Jadeveon Clowney for a bag of chips, so single-handedly, through egregious trades, egregious play calling, and egregious quarterback judgment, Bill O'Brien destroyed the Texans organization. Congrats to him. After all of that, guess what? Watson didn't say a peep, as he actually signed a 4-year, $160 million contract extension with the team back in September. But in January of 2021, Watson finally requested a trade publicly. The reason for this was more than likely a combination of all the problems I've just listed here. But there were later reports by Adam Schefter that said that the main reasons why he requested a trade was because, one, star wide receiver and close friend DeAndre Hopkins was traded, and not only traded, Watson didn't even find out formally. 2, the Texans actually went to Deshaun, asking him what direction the team should go in regarding the head coach, general manager, as well as roster moves. Watson suggested what they should do, but lo and behold, they do not take into consideration not one single thing that Deshaun Watson, the face of the franchise, proposed. And all of that was, quote, probably not scratching the surface on what took place in Houston. With a new general manager and head coach, that would not stop Deshaun Watson from wanting out from the Texans. And can anybody blame him? So to recap, the Texans lost their best defensive player, if not best overall player in franchise history in JJ Watt, as he asked to be released from the franchise. They lost their star wide receiver Deandre Hopkins by way of one of, if not the most stupid trade in NFL history. And they haven't lost their star quarterback Deshaun Watson physically yet, but mentally, he's already out the door. 3 superstars lost in a matter of a little over a year. That's gotta be a world record, right? But with that being said, talking about this entire story made me realize how bad the situation was, because I was even underestimating just how egregious this whole story of events were. I mean, it was so bad that I probably left out a couple of other important dumb things that the Texans have done over the years. But with that being said, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know what team Deshaun Watson should be on next. Should I make a video on that separately, just speaking on what teams he should potentially go to, what teams should trade for him? Let me know all that down below. But this is Jimmy from Just the Facts, and I'm signing out. Peace.